be a warrior.
Dear audience, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm really happy to be here today with Giovanna Ferrari, the director of Éiru, and myself. My name is Franz Böhm. I'm the director of Rock, Paper, Scissors. And it's really great that we have some time today to speak a little bit about our process, our inspirations, and how our films came to life. Now, Giovanna, I will obviously let you introduce yourself in a moment. Your film is shortlisted for this year's Academy Awards in the short animation category, and my film, Rock, Paper, Scissors, is shortlisted in the live action short film category. And how great, how nice that we are able to speak with each other today a little bit. Do you want to say a few words about your film as well?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Franz. That's such a good idea, and I'm always super happy to meet filmmakers. I'm very excited about this. My short is an animated short film. I am Italian, but my short has been made in Ireland. It's a short film that has a lot of resonance actually with Franz short film in a very strange way, even though they really aren't similar. They have some things in common. And so to me, to talk to you is incredible. I feel incredibly lucky that I get to spend some time with you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I think that already leads me to my first question. You've mentioned before privately that Putin's war in Ukraine has impacted you and perhaps in a negative way inspired you for your film. And at the same time, your film draws beautifully on Irish mythology. And I was just wondering what drew you to that story and how you began shaping the entire film.
I've always been really curious about the concept of the other in our own civilization, in a way, probably because I'm an expat, and as an expat you witness this weird thing that happens when you go abroad, where everybody tells you, wow, great, you're going away, and then maybe the same people that tell you this, that are happy for you to go somewhere else, are the same people who won't be very happy to see somewhere else coming in from, say, another country, and the same people will be very angry that people are stealing their jobs, and and so the concept of the other as really as a way created by power to divide people and to not look inside and not provide solutions for the real problems. That has always been a theme that has been in my mind as a person since I had started living abroad 20 years ago. And there is the idea as well that for me conflict is war is an obvious consequence of this ideology of the other, seen as an enemy, as the problem. That's what motivated me to tell this kind of story with a hopeful ending, mainly because I really wanted to feel an uplift in the end. I really felt that we needed to provide a sort of solution at some point. There are many things that are similar, in my opinion, in our movies, unexpectedly. But one thing is that we both started the shorts with a very playful situation. It's a light-hearted moment that symbolically then comes back later, but in a more dramatic way. In my case, it's a hymn that the clan sings that is like, "We are a clan of mighty flame." It's very fun at the beginning, and then it turns into something really different later on. In your case, is something else. Talk about how you build this up. How did you build the tone of your short, going from something playful and then turn it? How do you do that?
Thanks. I think that's a great question. I think for me, Rock, Paper, Scissors was never about war itself. It was more about what happens to everyday people and civilians when the that have been designed to help and to support and to protect them when they collapse. And the opening of Rock, Paper, Scissors doesn't immediately tell you that we are in modern day Ukraine. And we wanted it to be that way. We wanted it to feel like a universal situation. We wanted our main character Ivan to be in a situation where he's entertaining a child that a lot of people can connect to. And I think we had a lot of test screenings with this film, and it was always quite interesting to see when people have actually realized that this film is taking place in modern day Ukraine and that Putin's war is playing a role in this film. We didn't want to start the film with Ivan already being outside or Ivan already being in a conflict with the Russian soldiers, because we wanted it to have that universal approach, and we wanted to basically tell our audience that these situations, how unfortunate they are, could happen to everyone. And it's, for us, it's a story about moral courage and about a teenager that has to grow up over the span of, during the span of a day. And him playing with this little child just felt like the right moment, the right beat to start the story with.
Yeah, that's so smart, and and it works really, really well. It's similar to what I did, what I thought was good to do. When you say that it's a teenager that has to grow in a day, it hits home. It's very powerful. Well done.
I mean, I think that's another element actually that both of our films shares, that our main characters are quite young. I'm really interested because I felt quite immediately connected to your character. And one of the reasons, in my opinion, is the animation style that you have chosen to go with. For me, it's poetic, it's quite distinct, it feels quite raw, but in a really, really good way. And it obviously has this very hand-drawn, quite precise character. And I was wondering how you approached the look of the film, that technique, and also how the collaboration then was with your team, because for me that looked like a lot of effort, obviously.
I wanted the feeling of the character to feel really fresh and really alive, especially because she is the way she is. She's very young and she's not refined. She hasn't learned anything yet, and that's what makes her capable of changing, of being curious, of seeing things in a way that somebody too refined wouldn't be able to see them that way. That what makes her special. Like, there is a difference between the way she's drawn and animated and the rest of the characters. The other characters from her clan are much simpler, and they're animated really very like puppets almost, and that's on purpose because she's meant to be much more three-dimensional in a way, and much more capable of nuances where they absolutely aren't. So I really wanted to bring that, and in a short film you can do it. You can do it easily because we were very few people.
How big are we talking for the team?
I'd say we were like two main animators. It was me and Andrzej Radzka, who's an incredible Polish animator who works here with us for a long time as a supervisor most of the times. And then there were a lot of other animators who were just passing by, but they were all for very short time. So at the same time on the team, we must have been maybe 3 people maximum.
Yeah, super fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating to hear about that process. How long did it take actually?
It took a year in total to the whole short. We were really actually pretty fast compared to what you may expect, and that's really down to the fact that we could cut corners because of trust between us, because we knew each other so well that communication made it very easy so we didn't have to over establish rules, and like it was very easy to communicate and do things easily fast because we knew each other really well. How big was your crew?
I would say we had 40 people that were involved with the shoot on a real day-to-day basis. And then obviously sometimes you would have specialists coming in for particular scenes or particular moments. And it was very cool to work with all of them because all of them were students, or nearly all of them were students. It's our graduation project from the National Film and Television School. So all the head of departments, the DOP, for example, the editor, the sound designer, the composer, all of them were students at the time, and shared, I think, a very specific spirit and passion for that particular project, and brought in a lot of their own ideas. And I think we had the luxury of having quite a bit of time with this project.
How long?
Well, we found each other quite early. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it was roughly a year as well.
Yeah.
But we found each other quite early on. We knew that we wanted to work together, and we did spend a lot of time testing out different creative elements, testing out lenses, testing out location scouting. We had a lot of time with the actors to rehearse. We had meetings with the editor and the DOP and myself together to discuss the pacing of the film and to discuss how cinematography and editing has to work together in order to achieve that. We had meetings with the composer and the sound designer early on to discuss the sound landscape and the overall atmosphere of the film. We even had first cues from our amazing composer Marcin before we even started filming. So we already kind of knew where we wanted to go with the music or the score. So that was really helpful. Yeah, it was a really wonderful collaboration. Yeah.
It shows. It really shows. So yeah, also that is kind of similar to us in the sense that I'm very impressed that you are students because it looks like such a professional product. It's really incredible. But there is that sort of communal feeling of indeed like knowing each other, being very passionate about something, and that I think is something that we were very lucky to have on our short, which is, in a professional environment, that kind of the kind of understanding of each other, kind of community is pretty rare because most of the time, you're just doing the work. But in our case, I think, that's something that, when you described your experience, it sounded a bit like ours. Another similar moment that is present in our short is when our heroes meet the enemy. And that happens in both movies, but the outcomes of that meeting are really different from our two shorts. I love that you used the game rock, paper, scissors as a metaphor throughout the whole movie. And I was wondering, did it guide you, that game? Did it guide you in staging the denouement, the dramatic moment of encounter with the enemy?
It's a really, really good question. I mean, first of all, our film is quite heavily based on a true story. I think whenever a film is based on a true story or based on true events, you always wonder how much did they dramatize, how much did they streamline. I would say that our film on that spectrum is quite close to what actually happened. We mostly streamlined. Okay. We obviously summarized a few characters. We obviously made it a lot quicker in order to get to 20 minutes. But what I think is really powerful about the game Rock, Paper, Scissors in connection to our film is that it's about chance and about luck. When you play Rock, Paper, Scissors, you can't really have a huge strategy or tactic. You can't really outsmart the other person in a big way. And that felt very similar to both Ivan and myself when it comes to Putin's war, when it comes to everyday civilians and the sheer chance and the sheer luck of them being able to experience the next sunrise or not. And the film itself and the story itself was never about violence in any way, and it was never about people hating each other in any way. I think we were trying to honor the quiet bravery of everyday citizens, and there is obviously this huge debate going on about the war in Ukraine, about Putin's war, and I think people can quite often, or actually I get quite overwhelmed by the numbers and by the scale of it.
Yes.
And sometimes I think it's quite important to zoom in into one individual subjective experience, in this case Ivan's experience, to understand the situation that these people are living through. I think when we speak about the war in Ukraine, sometimes it feels like, okay, there are two militaries fighting each other and the front line moves from A to B, etc., etc. Sometimes the civilian perspective gets a little overlooked, in my opinion.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And that's where we wanted to come in with rock, paper, scissors. Yeah.
That's exactly it, and that's, yeah, absolutely. The civilians are always just used, never really the center of the narrative of wars. If they were, the wars wouldn't happen really. It would be clear that it doesn't make much sense to them. So
I wanted to ask about that actually, because for me it feels like the underworld is almost a character in the film, with its own moods and its own vibe and its own characteristics.
It's a typical archetype to have a character going into their own self or discovering something about themselves or about their origin. And literally in this case, it's a literal roots. So she enters the roots of the earth. There's a subtext to this all that is also leading, talking about the intersection between what we're doing to the earth as an the intersection of that with what we're doing to women, to minorities, as to say, we're never gonna actually fix anything if we don't fix everything. And the way we abuse and we take control over the land, the way we take control of other people's bodies, over other people's lives, that violence is the same violence whether we do it to a minority or we do it to our to Ukrainians, whether we do it to a plant, to our own animals, to the nature. And there is it comes from a loss of connection with really what matters, which is nature at the end of the day, and ourselves as humans, this beyond the clans we've been assigned to, and it's a very feminine and matriarchal ancient idea of society, in a way, like ones in which we tend the fields, we tend the world, we listen to nature, and we listen to the interconnections of the nature. So the mycelium, it's a symbol of it. So we use the bowels of the earth as a place that she discovers as the last remaining place that is healthy, that hasn't been destroyed yet. And there she also discovers, it's an Irish folk tale, an incredibly powerful presence that is the goddess Bridget. It's an ancient goddess in Ireland that has a lot of symbols. Throughout the movie, there is symbols of her everywhere, in pretty much every frame. And one of her main symbols is water. Another one is fire. Another one is the triskel that you see at the end. And she's a goddess of healing, of she's the god of the forge as well, as the forge as something you can use to create a weapon, but also to create a tool to make the land fertile. She's the goddess of fertility. So there is a return to her. So when she goes inside, that place is also a place that has all the connection of the world, and has somewhat kept together the secrets of the land and the stories of the victims of the wars that have been perpetrated above, So that's what she discovers. She discovers this place where she can still have access to the voices of the victims. She can listen to it. And that is a reference literally to what happened in Ireland recently, to the fact that for Ireland, talking about what happened, the victimization of so many people, is a way forward to healing. And I think that really is, an incredible powerful tool that we do have every day in our life to listen. Obviously, we're very subtext, that none of them was explainable. So much so that part of the movie never really had a script. The whole movie didn't really have a script, but specifically that part was completely only storyboarded. I just drew it because it was impossible to explain otherwise.
With this fascination for these almost religious old symbols, is that something that you always wanted to do? Is that something that you were always interested in?
Well, it's the religions that were there before monotheistic religions. It was religions where, for instance, women had a place to be. It was the religion of the witches, before they were called witches, when they were healers. And it's we have distorted the name religion in a way. It's a sacrality. Our culture had a beautiful integration between humans and land and nature that is lost, and there is a connection between that loss and the fact that we kill each other. It is connected. These two things are one, and we should start to really think about them in terms of being one attitude. Yeah, so witches are, in a way, and this magic world that gives solutions and bring back a bit of hope and prosperity as what makes me make movies. And I wonder, what leads you to make movies?
I'm deeply convinced by the power of storytelling and also by the power of films. And I lost my father when I was still quite young, when I was 11. And
sorry about that.
Thank you for saying that. I think watching films and then also making films helped me a lot in that quite dark time. And I think at that time I was very inspired by stories and films where, characters overcame certain challenges, where characters transformed themselves, where characters developed, where characters were perhaps in really harsh circumstances, but were able to sort of outgrow themselves, or were able to, outsmart their competition, or were able to stand up to the bully whatsoever. And I think that it is still a bit underestimated how much films have impacted parts of our society. I think, for example, being German myself, I think that a lot of Germans were able to understand the full picture of the Holocaust in much more detail because of filmmaking, and because films were actually showing, listen, when you read about concentration camps, this is what they actually looked like, this is what it felt like, this is what it must have felt like to be inside one of them, and so on and so on. And I'm still to this day deeply in love with the filmmaking industry and the process of making films, which I think is deeply magical and astonishing and wonderful. And part of that is obviously collaborating with like-minded, or not like-minded, but part of that is collaborating with people who influence these films as well. For me, on Rock, Paper, Scissors, that was obviously collaborating with Ivan, first and foremost, because it was his story, was his experience, and collaborating with him and perhaps even maybe you can say honoring him a little bit with this film is wonderful, and I'm still deeply grateful for everything that he has done for this project and for all the conversations we were able to have. And I'm also really grateful for the many other team members, our head of departments, but everyone that has worked on this film. Everyone has shaped this film in their own way. Everyone has brought something unique to the table. And I think actually that the film industry in that sense is quite, not unique, but quite extraordinary. The fact that we have people from so many backgrounds coming together who are all then working on the same project, who are all working with the same or very similar outcome in mind. And I think that is something for me that is still to this day incredibly powerful and motivating as well, and keeps me going on a daily basis. That sense of community and that sense of collaboration. And with Rock Paper Scissors, it's a short film. It is one story, but I do hope that in this large public debate that we're having about Putin's war in Ukraine, I just hope that it allows at least some people to get an even better understanding on what this war actually means for everyday people on the ground. And if just one person is able to have that understanding a bit more, then my job is already done. And
yeah, absolutely.
And I will also say, and I think I wasn't quite able to say that during this conversation yet, but collaborating with the Ukrainian community, both in the UK but also in Europe and in Ukraine, obviously, was an enormous pleasure and honor for this film, and the amount of energy that they brought to the table. Alexander Rudinsky, our lead actor, I think is one of the most brilliant actors I've ever worked with. He's extremely experienced and talented, and brought so much, so many ideas and so much commitment to the role, to this project. It was very inspiring to work with him, and I think actually he really also inspired. Not that they've needed it, but he really inspired the rest of the team and the rest of the cast to also give their best, because he clearly was so again committed and invested into this role and into this project. It was really fascinating and extraordinary to see, I have to say.
You can see it. It's so driven. It's such a drive into it. It's breathtaking. Well, I wish I had met the character you took the story from. He must have been an incredible human being. I'm happy that, although it's pretty tragic, I'm happy that at least this story is, continuing his story and his life, and it's a part of him out there. Still doing what is important to be done, but it's heartbreaking, and I don't know. I love what you said. Like, it's very meta in a way. Making a movie, to make the world better, but it's seemingly through it, making a unified the union of the crew itself. It's a step forward into not only making a movie, making a product that talks about community, but it's also itself an incredible medium to achieve that. And it's similar for us, I guess. Like, there really is an intention also to use Éiru for workshop for kids and for nature.
Well, Giovanna, I think that is a beautiful way. How you've just described it, I think is a beautiful way to end our conversation. I can't really add anything to that. I think it was extremely well said. Thank you very much for your time. It was a real pleasure to speak with you. And obviously,
Likewise.
my fingers are crossed, and best of luck for everything that's coming up in the next few weeks. And I hope that we can continue this conversation at some point in person.
I hope so too. It will be absolutely my pleasure and honor. Best of luck for your beautiful movie, and say hi to all the crew.
Thank you.